she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TEA. I am the author of a new book on sustainable living called You Can Save the World. In fact, you're the only one who can, and also the CEO of a company called Inclusivi-TEA. And our mission in all areas is to create a sustainable future where everyone thrives. And on our podcast, we like to have guests who are working towards creating that future with us. So today, we are really fortunate to have Andrés Bustamante, who is the founder and head of Persona Contemporary. Did I say all of that correctly, Andrés?
Yeah, Andrés Bustamante.
Okay, Andrés Bustamante. So, Andrés, thank you so much for being here.
Lori, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, I want to start by having you tell us what Persona Contemporary is, and then a little bit about what you're doing there, what your goals are there.
Absolutely. Persona Contemporary is a community organization that desires to empower minorities, minority communities to heal through the power of creative play. So to nurture awe and wonder and to be able to create hands-on opportunities for women, BIPOC, LGBTQIA communities. So it's all about diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility in the arts.
I love that because that is exactly, we care deeply about that. We work with artists, and diversity, equity, inclusion are sort of and sustainability are sort of our foundations. So I appreciate that so much. Tell me a little bit about how you got to this, because it sounds fascinating and I love the idea of it, but how did you come up with this?
Thank you, Lori. So I'm a political refugee from Colombia, South America. I moved to the States when I was 10, and I've lived in Nashville, Tennessee since I was about 12. And as a political refugee and a minority, it's a unique experience. The previous administration politically here in the States, there was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric, a lot of just supremacist views, a lot of just anger and hatred stirred. And locally here in Tennessee, there were a lot of anti-immigrant laws passed, including a House bill, HB 2315, which allows police officers to act as deportation agents. If you can imagine this, imagine you're going to work, you kiss your family goodbye, and see you later, I love you, and you drive to work. Police officer stops you. You have a red, you have a tail light that's gone off. It's no longer working, and this could mean the difference between seeing your family again or not, right? So imagine how terrifying that is to a whole entire community, where a simple traffic stop could mean being deported. So that's the reality that a lot of people live under. But truly, ICE and deportations and family separations and anti-immigrant rhetoric is not new to the previous administration. It's a system. So Persona Contemporary rose out of answering that call for help, out of response to the a response to the anti-immigrant and racist administration that we just experienced. I didn't know exactly what to do because I'm not a politician.
Right.
I'm a creative. I'm an artist. I didn't know how to take action. I attended protests, but I realized protesting isn't my forte, and political activism isn't exactly my forte, but creative art activism, to create opportunities, to create change, to be for something rather than against something, right? I want to create this culture of empowerment through creativity. So in 2018, I partnered with Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, TIRC, and I gathered a few amazing local artists, curatorially very diverse. So emerging artists with established artists were put in the same roster, minority artists, LGBTQ artists, people of color. I just wanted this to be a vision of the creative play I wanted to see, the opportunities, the world that I wanted to see, right? We raised a few $1,000s in one night for Turk. All the proceeds went to Turk. That opened up opportunities that I didn't realize it would happen, but I'm really grateful that things lined up. And I started getting opportunities to teach workshops in predominantly minority schools, to teach workshops in for nonprofits with minority African American populations, communities, to teach workshops and to just plant seeds of hope, to plant seeds of inspiration. That's what I want to nurture, that awe and wonder, that creative play, that inspiration in spirit. And so Persona Contemporary has been creating projects and opportunities, and I'm just really grateful to be able to plant those seeds of creative play and to engage the community.
So tell me a little bit about if there was a workshop that we went to. Tell us a little bit about what that process is and what that looks like.
Another really big part of Persona Contemporary is creating an opportunity to heal,
Mhm.
for our communities to heal. And mental health awareness is a big priority as well, because whether you think about the practice of art and creativity as a therapy or not,
Mm.
you are still processing
Yeah.
emotions,
Yeah.
intuitively or consciously or subconsciously. You're processing emotions, you're expressing. That's what expression is, right? We all have a choice.
Yeah.
We can we can choose to process our emotions, our human feelings, which are very normal. Everybody experiences a colorful range of emotions. We could choose to process them and pick up a bottle, or we could pick up a gun or a knife, or to either harm ourselves or others, or we could pick up a tool. Right? What does a tool do? A tool creates, a tool empowers, a tool helps. So it could be a colored pencil, it could be a brush, it could be an instrument, right? It could be something that lets you process your creative play, your emotion, right? Why do we listen to music when we feel some kind of way, right? Because it allows for that vibe to continue building up, right? Why do we look at art? Because we want to be transported elsewhere. So, what does a workshop look like? To go back to your question, we talk a little bit about what we just talked about. Creative play is everywhere. Creativity is everywhere. If you just look at, if you just pick up your iPhone or your Samsung phone, whatever phone you have, some sort of creative play went into creating it, right? We wouldn't have these technologies. We wouldn't have these innovations. We wouldn't have these breakthroughs in humanity and society had there not been someone who thought a little bit outside the box, who said, what if, right? And that's creative play right there. You don't necessarily have to be able to paint a straight line. This is what I hear as an artist from 99% of people. Oh, you're an artist, great. I can't even draw a straight line. I'm like, awesome. That's step number one in being an artist. Can't draw a straight line? You're in. You're welcome to the club. I can't draw straight lines either. So art can be anything. So we talk about creative play and how creative play is part of everyday life and humanity in general. And also we talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So this is where the conversation about processing emotions comes in, and we make it very I want it to be very accessible. I want it to be very practical
Mhm.
for people. And the most practical way to put it is, do you remember when you were first learning how to ride a bike? as a kid, or maybe as an adult, you were learning to ride a bike, or you took on a new task and it was hard, and you were like, oh my gosh, like, you fell, you scraped your knee when you're learning to ride a bike. Did you give up? Did you say, you know what, like bike riding, ugh, I'm done. Like, I don't want to ride bikes ever in my life. No, you usually got back up because you're like, this thing goes fast. Oh my gosh, this is exciting, right? So it sparked something in you.
Right.
So that's growth mindset. Fixed mindset would say, you know what, I'm done. No more bike riding for me. Growth mindset says, okay, maybe like if I push a little harder this time and like, whatever. And okay, maybe if I have training wheels, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or the analogy of the kid, the newborn baby, or that's learning to walk or crawl, right? And then it gains enough strength that it like wants to get up and do what mom and dad do in two legs. And at first it's like, oh, and then they fall.
Yeah.
Well, as a kid, were you like, oh, you know what? Like, I give up. My career in walking is over. Like, I'm done. I'm just gonna stay. Like, my niche is crawling.
Mm-hmm.
No, eventually your legs gain enough strength, and you're like, oh, this thing is cool. I can do this now. So that's growth mindset, right? How do we process very common, normal human emotions? The human mind processes millions of emotions, millions of thoughts. Think of emotions also as thoughts, like that little voice inside of you saying, sometimes it's a negative voice. Sometimes it's like, oh, you did this and that. Or sometimes it's like, yeah, good job, right? So strengthening that, like, yeah, good job, you can do it kind of perspective.
Well, it sounds really exciting. I want to back up a little bit and ask you about your art. So, as an artist, what's your medium? What's your favorite? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, as an artist, it's always been a very experimental practice for me. I briefly went to art school, realized it was extremely expensive as a immigrant and refugee, which means I'm not a U.S. citizen. I could not get financial aid. I couldn't get private loans. So even if I wanted to be neck deep in debt, that wasn't possible. They couldn't loan money to me for education. So that's a barrier of entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to art school just on private scholarships, talent scholarships, and working a little pizza job, and the help of my family. And my mother helped me a lot. I'm very grateful for that support. But after a little bit, it became unaffordable to pay for private art school. But one of the most wonderful things that one of my professors said was, "Hey," and this professor taught from the book she wrote.
Oh, sure.
This is like the level of professor, very respected. She was like, "Hey, man, like, you don't have to finish a fancy degree to be an artist. You can continue creative play. You can continue creating art.
Mm-hmm.
You could get a very similar technical skill set at a community college, or through an apprenticeship, or through just self-education." Which, if you think about it historically, a lot of the masters, if you really look at their biography, a lot of them are self-taught. Yep. And they just continued pursuing their practice. But leading back to your question, I through a lot of experimentation and through being informed by graffiti, street art, that rebel art, that says, I'm going to make art for art's sake, no matter what risk it is. And I did get in trouble for graffiti in junior year of high school, which allowed me to continue to say, hey, like, are there other ways of creative expression that may not land me in trouble for the rest of my life? But all of that, decades of experimentation have led me to finding a voice that I feel more genuine about creatively, which I use this plexiglass acrylic, and I melt it, bend it, fold it, shape it, embellish it, paint it.
Wow, that sounds terrific. So it's sculptural.
It's yeah.
I love that. Can you send us a few photos so that we can include them when we launch the podcast?
Glad to.
Okay, that sounds really fascinating. Uh, how long have you been doing that kind of work?
It's been about 3 years now, and I feel that the possibilities are endless, and the experimentation, that's a curiosity is
Mhm.
always driving my practice.
Interesting. And so when you were younger, when did you first sort of recognize that you were an artist? At what age?
So it started with music.
Hmm.
My mother, when we were in Colombia, um, she was in and out of my life. I was mostly raised by my grandparents in Colombia until age 10. But my mother in Colombia wanted me to learn some sort of music trait, some
Sure.
sort of music skill, because my late grandfather was a Latin percussionist. And so it was already there. So starting to learn piano at like age 6 or so. And then eventually it developed into drums,
Hmm.
hand percussion, a little bit of guitar. But really, I would say that visually, the catalyst for my practice now was graffiti, street art,
Sure.
uh, and getting in trouble for it made it even more appealing, because I always wanted to find a way to create art and to create public art,
Right.
to let art be free from just the gallery walls, and for people to experience it.
Yeah.
So I was always thinking like how to challenge myself to get out of the box of creative expression, and yeah, and so here we are.
Fascinating. So how big are your current pieces?
My latest mural project, which it was a personal commission that I involved the Persona Contemporary
Sure.
Artist Collective, which are artists or uh, people from the community that wanted to be involved. Um, that mural is 6 foot by 20 feet. And next week, actually, I'm starting a project at an amazing music venue called Exit In.
Mhm.
And it's a 9 foot by 40 foot mural.
Oh my goodness.
So
And
that'll be
is
the
it
next biggest.
so is are you doing that with the acrylic, sort of your new technique, or is that something else?
So, because it's on a trailer,
Mhm.
it's going to be this awesome outdoor stage they built out of a trailer. It's like the metal
Sure.
is kind of like has those surfaces that are kind of, I don't know how you say it, but
Yeah.
um,
Corrugated,
yeah, that.
sort of?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be outdoors, so
Mm.
it has to be archival. And the best way to have outdoor archival work would be through professional spray paint.
Okay.
So
That
it'll be a 2D design,
sure. What
but
ab
incorporating 3D visual
okay.
elements.
And the last one that you did, was that a 3D or was that a 2D as well?
That was 3D. That was 3D because it's indoors.
Okay.
It's an indoor mural, 6 foot by 20 foot, inside of the new building at Tennessee Immigrant
Oh,
Refugee
very,
Rights
very
Coalition.
cool. Oh, that's
Yes,
amazing. So, when you're talking about 3D, but it's on a wall,
correct.
so there are pieces that extend? I'm just
Yeah,
curious as to what it looks like.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like a sculpture on a mural.
Well, again, if you can send us a photo of that, I would
Glad to,
love to see it and share it with people.
glad to.
So it sounds like you've been sort of working towards this since your graffiti days and maybe since your music days, because I do think what I hear over and over again from creative people, which is frankly almost everyone and maybe everyone, is that there are all these paths and that often it changes over time. I had one artist on who was 90 who said to me, you know what, my biggest advice for anyone creative is just try everything. Just
Yes.
open yourself up to trying a bunch of things because she said, "I've found that the things I like most are often the things I thought I wouldn't care about. I
Right.
tried something just to try it and then I loved it. And so I ended up doing it for a number of years out of sheer surprise to myself just because I was open to it."
Exactly. Just exploring.
Do you do any more music at this point? I'm sure you love music, but are you playing or performing at all?
Just when Nashville is full of music,
Yeah.
so just when friends have maybe get-togethers, and
Mhm.
I bring my little djembe. It's a little drum that's very portable, hand drum.
Love it.
So that's a lot of fun to jam with people, but not professionally.
Okay. So, if you had to sort of summarize what your goal is for Persona Contemporary, what would you say is sort of your underlying goal right now?
The dream is to continue to empower communities to heal
Mhm.
through creative play, nurturing on wonder, and mental health opportunities. Um, I, I invite anyone who's listening or watching this online, if you have any interest in community empowerment, if you have a blank wall, if you have an art gallery and you can do a pop-up exhibit or a full curatorial endeavor, if you know a guy who knows a guy who knows a lady who owns, you know, a warehouse or a building or anything that can connect the dots
Yeah.
for creative play and to empower diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility in the arts.
Mhm.
If you know a nonprofit, if you know someone who just has a heart to serve, please contact me,
Um,
because this is bigger than Nashville.
yeah.
This is bigger than Tennessee. And this is bigger than just the continental United States. I want to create opportunities all over the place in every possible way.
Mhm.
There are so many ways that we can serve our communities. In Nashville has become a hot spot for tourism and for development.
Right.
But if you live here, you notice that there's certain neighborhoods that,
Mhm.
they have all the murals, they have all the economic surplus, they have all the
Mhm.
opportunities, they have all of the galleries, and there's a lot of neighborhoods that are starving creatively, creative deserts, right? And again, what is life without creativity? What is life without awe and wonder, without inspiration? It's a desert. If you don't have a reason to wake up in the morning, if you're not excited, if there's not that desire to wake up for a purpose, what is there, right? Our communities have suffered a lot. If you think about it, it's COVID took a lot of, and Nashville has seen a lot of disasters, nature, weather disasters, natural disasters. Our communities are being torn apart by police brutality, by hate crimes against AAPI community, and just people in general, like minorities in general, like experiencing discrimination and racism. Our LGBTQIA plus community having to fight for their existence, for the right to love and to be, like, just humans having to fight for the right to say, I am. It's so painful, right? So I want to plant seeds, right? They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. That's a famous quote, and that's a vision of growth. That's a vision of opportunity. When you're a seed, you're in the dirt and you're scared and you're sad and you're afraid and it's cold and it's dark. But that cold and dark and wet and dirt eventually leads you to the sun, to see the light, to grow, to be fruitful. But you can't just be fruitful to say, look at me, I'm so pretty, I'm so fruitful, look at my flowers, look at my, look at how fruitful I am. You have to also bear fruit that has seeds that are planted and bear more seeds. So my I guess personal mantra would be empower yourself, empower others.
Yep.
Love yourself, love others. Yep. And so again, if you're watching this and you have some sort of economic opportunity or wall space or mural space or even an empty warehouse where you could create opportunities for exhibits or experiences or an art studio, that's a huge need in the artist community too, because art space has become completely unaffordable, especially in populated metropolitan cities. It's completely it's almost the price of renting out a bedroom, like $600-$700 just to rent a small little closet sized art studio.
Yeah.
So it's unaffordable, it's unattainable. Imagine having even more barriers to accessing your creative play. I've struggled a lot with housing and studio instability, which doesn't help if you're trying to practice. Right. So if you have those opportunities anywhere in Middle Tennessee or outside of Tennessee, please let me know. You can contact me at Andrés at personacontemporary.com, or feel free to DM me at Andrés, Andres, Bustm. I'm very accessible, and I'm looking to partner with people who want to create opportunities.
Yeah, and we will include all that information when we post the podcast. So, Andrés, it's getting to be about that half-hour mark. So I want to ask a couple more questions here, and then we're going to stop this episode, and we'll resume in a second episode. So in the second episode, we'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk more about sustainability. We'll talk about some advice you would give to young artists coming up, and we'll talk about how you sort of view your life, the underpinnings of your life, what drives you. But before that, I want to ask a couple more background questions. So one of them is, as a refugee, are you able to get citizenship? Have you done that? Is that something you can do? What's the process for that? Because I really don't know.
Thank you for asking. That's actually one of the biggest questions that people ask me when they realize that I'm a political refugee. People don't know, and they think, oh, well, you've been here long enough in the United States,
Right.
Why aren't you a citizen? Let's just say there's people in politics and in the government doing their best to try and remove people like myself from here. They don't want us here. They don't care about us. And they forget that the United States is built upon immigration. You only have to trace it back a couple generations, and your family probably came from somewhere else where there was persecution, and you didn't feel safe or welcome. People ask, well, why can't you just come in legally? I ask for those who have a mindset that is anti-immigrant. I challenge you to ask your neighbor next door what their experience has been. Why? Right? Why are you here? I mean, if things were so wonderful in our country, we would have just stayed there, you know. But instead, we had to flee. You know, Colombia has been torn apart by. That's where I'm from. Colombia, South America, has been torn apart by terrorism and political turmoil and the war on drugs and a lot of just ridiculous amounts of political corruption. Up to this day, there have been protests in the streets, and the police have been killing innocent bystanders or people just walking in the street getting groceries, point blank shooting people on the street. There are videos of this happening, people that weren't even protesting. So police brutality in Colombia has become out of the charts. And then the ridiculous amounts of political corruption. So for me, a path to citizenship, really the only way right now is to marry a citizen.
Okay.
Because I don't have political asylum, which is different. Political asylum does create a path towards citizenship.
Okay.
I have a status known as withholding of removal. So I am protected by the U.S. government. I can be here legally. I can have a driver's license, which I have to renew every year. So if you don't like the DMV, imagine doing it every year. I have to renew a work permit every year. And my work permit, if you look at it, it has an A number. This A number stands for alien. So when you can alienate someone, when you can label someone as, oh, they're just an immigrant. Oh, they're just, an alien. Oh, they're just, they're other than human. When you can dehumanize someone, you can strip away their humanity and their rights, and then they just become trash. They're disposable. That's why the governments have done things like putting kids in cages at the border. That's why these governments have created a system of a school system to jail pipeline. That's why they incarcerate our people of color at a ridiculous rate. Still to this day, people that states that have legalized marijuana, a plant that grows on the earth naturally, people are being incarcerated, life sentences. There was a case, Mississippi man, African-American male, who tried to appeal his case, and he was denied for simple possession of marijuana. And this is happening in states that have already legalized marijuana, which the privileged populations, the mostly white male-dominated industry of cannabis, now multi-billion-dollar industry, they're profiting. But prisons for profit, what people don't understand is that we have an American jail system that profits off of slavery, just like they did way before Martin Luther King. Just like historically, the United States has raped, killed, and created genocide to our Native American population, to our community. They've done the same by criminalizing marijuana and creating racist laws against Mexican population, Mexican Americans. Like that was a big part of the war on drugs. And now we have a system. It just went from slavery from like savage slavery, like, oh, they're so evil, to now it's just legal slavery. It's called the prison system. It's called the school to prison pipeline. Defund minority school systems, fund the police more. When you have this gap right there, all these people here, let's just throw them in jail. They're black people, they're Mexicans, they're minorities. Nobody cares. Nobody's speaking up. People in privilege, people in power are not speaking up. And you holding a little Black Lives Matter sign everywhere, or like a hat or a mask or a t-shirt, that's doing nothing. Like, actually go into our communities. actually speak to representatives, actually do stuff. And if politics isn't your thing, that's okay. Politics are not my thing, but activism is. Protesting is not my thing, but art is. So find your way to empower our communities and do something. So I challenge everyone to rethink, to educate yourselves, and to empower yourselves. But don't just take knowledge as power. Take action as power. And if your passion and your area of expertise and your purpose in life is to, I don't know, bake cupcakes, whatever, then bake cupcakes for social good.
Right.
Whatever it is, whatever talent you've been given, whatever voice you have, like, help others.
I like that a lot because our firm belief at Inclusivity, and my personal firm belief right now, is that there is no more time to just talk. Like, it's not enough to just say, oh, I do support you. I really, really do. It has to be action, and it has to be movement. And we have a responsibility because this has to change. We're going to talk in the next episode, which we're going to start in a minute, more about sustainability, and creating a sustainable future is about equity. It's about justice, it's about diversity, and it's about the environment, but it's about all of that, and it's about racial justice. So I think that that you're right. This is not the moment to wait. This is not the moment to chat about it or to make plans or to learn, although you have to learn too, but it's also the moment to act and do things decisively and make changes. So we are going to end this podcast on that. Please turn into the second edition of the second episode with Andrés, where we will talk more about, really more about sustainability. We'll talk a bit about what drives Andrés to do what he does. We'll talk about any advice he has for younger people coming up. And then he's going to tell us a story from his life. So all of that will happen in the second episode. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Andrés. I will talk to you again in a minute.
If she's a mountain